Nick Meyer and Willie J. We bring to you the beginning of the 2026 season. It's officially here. Let's talk free agent signings, acquisitions, trades, and more. So with that said, Willie, 2026 free agency has begun. I guess the whole entire season at this point has begun. Just very recently, this is March 11th. I think it opened up officially. Is that right?
Yeah, like this morning.
Yep. So this is hot off the presses. Of course, you hear about details being made. As a Raiders fan, I'm going to talk about a few of these things coming up very shortly. But first off, I should like to ask you, Willie, how's it going?
It's going good. It's going good. We had a fake spring here up in Portland. It was beautiful last weekend, and now it's pouring rain again. So I'm looking forward to eventually spring. But things are good. In terms of like football, I do appreciate the period like in between the Super Bowl and the middle of March where I can just more or less take a rest from paying attention to the news. But I'm already back in full swing. I've been like F5ing on Reddit and different like message boards and stuff with news, and it's just I'm already like sucked back into it. But this is an outlet. I'm happy we're able to talk about it and get it out of my brain.
I feel that very. I feel it with you. Of course, I've had a sick kid, so we like you said, fall spring happens. Everyone gets excited. Everyone goes outside, and then inevitably, one of my children ends up getting sick. So we're talking like 103 fever. He broke the fever, got past it. We're good, so don't worry about me. However, my brain has been stuck in the I'm watching a child and keeping him alive. So I'm a Raiders fan. I'm gonna get that out of the way here real quick. A lot of people probably know that already. But if you don't, I'm a Raiders fan, and as I'm sure you guys and everyone around knows, I've had to deal with this Max Crosby trade drama in my own life and in the own ways it affects me, which is, to be honest, not very much. I think I'll say my opinion straight off the bat. The Raiders are in such a win-win situation. This is what drafting a star in round 4 looks like, is that no option could possibly be wrong since you've re-signed him and he's on a contract. We can either get a bunch of picks for him or we can keep the guy and he plays up to his standards. And then great, we have an awesome player. Win-win. Now, with that said, the Ravens, before free agency begins, making a deal to trade 2 first-round picks and take all the salary, to then reneging after free agency begins and signing a different guy who at the same position who, he's pretty good. Just what a jerk move. What a terrible message to send to anybody who wants to talk to the Ravens in the future.
I don't believe for a second when the GM came out and said that their whole plan all along was to trade for Crosby and then also sign Hendrickson. I don't believe that. I mean, I think they lost I forget his name, the guy who's always injured this year in free agency, and they traded I think it was Adafe Owe in the middle of last season. So they definitely had a needed edge rusher, but they don't necessarily have the cap space or the overall like huge hole in their roster to need 2 edge rushers. Like most teams don't need a Trey and a Max. Like very few teams have that luxury. Like I don't believe for a second that they had, reneged on the deal with Crosby and then they're like, oh, well, we're still going to sign Hendrickson because that was our plan all along is to have both. I don't believe that.
No, there's a very much a cover your tracks thing going on right here, right? Because as a Raiders fan, I can tell you this much. There was no doubt that Crosby just had a surgery on his knee. It was a whole storyline that was happening during the last 2 weeks of the season is that the Raiders were holding him out and he was doing basketball videos,
Yeah.
There's no shock here that okay, his knee had a surgery that was going to keep him out for a little bit, but it was going to be okay before the season began. It's the same story now. What do you fail physical for on the stuff you already know?
What I was reading is that I think initially Crosby was diagnosed with, and I meant to look this up before this pod, but I think it was like a meniscus tear. I'm paraphrasing here. That was the recovery time was estimated to be 4 to 6, 8 weeks, but then he ended up having a meniscus something else and that required surgery, which would put him out for approximately like 2 to 5 months. But I was reading comments on the thread that said people had similar experiences where that they had a similar tear, but they opted to get the surgery, and because of that, like their knee was like completely repaired in the meniscus area. So by prolonging the rehab by doing the surgery, like it actually is much better long term for Crosby instead of doing like just the partial recovery. So not only was he, known to be having the knee injury going into the medicals, but like it was known that he had off-season surgery that was going to keep him out until like probably July. So in full transparency, if the Ravens want to make this right, which I don't think they even really care to do for PR, they're whatever. It would make sense if they came out explicitly and said why Crosby failed the medicals independently from his knee surgery. Like there's nothing that said like, we know he had the meniscus surgery, but like his recovery is not lining up with what we expected, or like, he's going to fail the physical because he's recovering from surgery, and they haven't come out and said why he failed the physical explicitly, just that it wasn't like up to the standards that they had expected. But like there's just like some disconnect there. Like, okay, yeah, he's not gonna be able to perform football until July. That's known. That's not a secret. So I don't understand at all.
It hardly makes any real sense to me, except for they found out Hendrickson was going to be a little bit cheaper overall,
Hmm.
and they're like, "That's actually what we want to do. Then let's go with the cheaper option and keep our picks." Which, yeah, okay, sure. On its hand, I understand that, but like, don't agree to the deal. There's other teams that are offering deals as well. Like the Bears could have Max right now, the Cowboys could have Max right now, and of course, it all falls through because there's confusion. The free agencies happen. The
Yeah.
cap space that was there for these trades to happen is gone at this point. And like I said at the beginning of this, for the Raiders themselves as an organization, as the team, from a fan standpoint, I don't care about all the podcast stuff. I don't care. Like it doesn't matter to me. Who cares, right? Like these guys are
Hmm.
getting paid, and I don't think Max is going to tank his value. It doesn't make sense.
Hmm.
So who cares? This is a win-win. You either get picks or you get a great player.
Yeah. And I
So
think I was going to say I think it's almost a blessing in disguise because the Raiders didn't think they were going to have Crosby. They actually went out and signed like they re-signed Malcolm Kuntz. They signed Quiddy Pay from the Colts. They signed Dean and Walker from the Eagles and Packers. Like they built up their defense in free agency, not assuming they have Crosby. And then they came out and said, I think it was either Spytek or maybe it was even Brady. I don't know. But they came out and said like we're honoring all of our free agency signings. We're not like, taking anything back, which is great. I mean, if they did that, that would be terrible to the players. But like I think the Raiders not only are smart, but they look good for like honoring the contracts they made.
like, they got their back ways, like there's this Twitter account called the AFL Godfather, and it's got Al Davis as the icon, right? And everyone's theorized that this is Mark Davis's Twitter account because he doesn't have one officially. And they like that's actually the place to get your Raiders breaking news. So the AFL Godfather, and right before all this news breaks, all you get from that account is the Ravens are such pussies, uh, And excuse my language here. This is me quoting a tweet, but it's just funny, right? Because I hear the Ravens and like I can't think of a front office besides maybe the Steelers that has been more renowned for stability, for doing things the right way, for creating a functional organization that continues to win year after year.
Hmm.
And this year, in my opinion, they're kind of blowing all that up. You can argue about getting rid of Harbaugh. That's all fine. And at this point, as a Raiders fan, I hope you understand. I'm a little biased right now. I'm a little mad at them for kind of coming in. Like we're lucky that we had so much cap space. We had a ridiculously large amount of cap space, and that really helped us out. But of course, now
Yeah.
we can't sign anyone else really until the rookie signings are done.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think it is a win-win. I think that the Raiders are in a good position. I mean, I think that the Bears have passed the torch to the Raiders as offseason champions, at least so far. And honestly, I can double down on that because the Raiders are going to get Mendoza. So I think Raiders are officially offseason champions in the NFL. Um, I did hear that the Cowboys offered a first and a second for Crosby, and then I heard unconfirmed rumors that the Bears offered two first as well, and then the Raiders obviously went with the Ravens because the Bears, were in the playoffs and the Ravens weren't, so a higher pick. Um, I don't suspect. I mean, I think you had mentioned that Crosby just tweeted he's staying a Raider like a few minutes ago.
Yeah,
So
right before we did this is about an hour before we got live here. He tweets out a picture of the Undertaker, and everything happens for a reason. I'm back and I'm ready. And of course, with Max, the whole problem was that he didn't think that the Raiders wanted to win, right? And so he's like, I want to go to an organization that is better run and wants to win, and that's
yeah.
clearly the Ravens. And then you see the Ravens making almost no moves in free agency except for this Trey Hendrickson thing, and then they reneged on his deal. And man, you're like, okay, I'm going to go to the best organization. Then they treat him dirty immediately. I'm willing to bet that Max is happy that it didn't go through now.
Hmm.
And look, I'll call right here. Max Crosby's probably going to have his best year that he's ever had as far as actual numbers go.
I mean, yeah, look at what it did of Garrett, Miles Garrett. He was like, I went out of Cleveland. I want to go to a city that's going to get me a ring. And then he gets massively paid and has the best season of his career. And he's older than Crosby. So I think there's some hope there. I
Mhm.
do want to say, like, I don't know the guy, obviously, and I like him enough as a player, but Trey Hendrickson, man, I get the Bengals are dysfunctional, but he was just kind of like screwing around for 2 years. Like, I'm not going to sign, I'm going to resign, signs a 1 year deal. And then he goes to their biggest rival in free agency. Like, come on, man. I don't know. If I was a Bengals fan, I would not be happy with
W-
Hendrickson.
The whole thing about Trey right now is like he's setting himself up for some real bad vibes if he doesn't perform.
Yeah.
Because coming in and with the way that trade went down and him signing immediately afterwards and being clearly the obvious reason that the Ravens walked out on that trade, if he doesn't perform or let's say he performs worse than Crosby in a significant way or he gets injured and Crosby stays healthy next year, it's as simple as that.
Hmm.
Boy, man, that PR disaster that he's going to have to deal with as a person is
Yeah.
insane. It just like, what a decision. I am happy. I'll say this much as a Raiders fan, we got Tyler Linderbaum
Hmm.
and middle finger to y'all, dude. I'm gonna have a chip on my shoulder against the Ravens just for being such jerks
Yeah.
and dirtbags. Like
Oh, I get
they
it.
didn't
Yeah.
screw us over exactly, but they could have, they
Yeah.
would have too, very much so. They would have.
I mean, yeah, if they were trading to a team like, I mean, the Bears, for example, don't have a lot of cap space. The Raiders had, I think, the most in the league. So if they were trading to like either a rebuilding or a win now team for, yeah, I'm just saying the Ravens obviously don't have Crosby. Like if they did, they were trading a player like that. It would totally screw over the other team because not only did they, rescind their offer, but they did it right before the start of the league year, which is just not not professional.
Now, I've heard a lot of calls for the league to take action, and I don't agree with that per se, right? Because even as a Raiders fan, I'm like, yeah, give me a pick, fine, that's great.
Mm,
You can't really like, I wouldn't get intervened with this. However, I will say this does set an unfortunate precedent in my mind, where it's like, yeah, if you really want to screw over a team in free agency, go trade for that player who makes a lot of money, and then tell them never mind after they've made their deals. Because like, if we didn't have all that
yeah.
money available, all those contracts would have fallen apart.
Yeah. It's such a tricky gray area because the trade happened in the quote unquote legal tampering period, which exists a week before the start of the new league year. And I mean, that's just kind of a joke because like obviously teams tamper is even before the Super Bowl happens. I mean, we saw it with the Dolphins and trying to get Brady and they got, docked their first round pick because of it. So the legal tampering period is kind of a joke in my opinion, but I think if this deal had gone down and then the Raiders rescinded it like, today even, which, a few hours later basically, then I think there probably would be repercussions. So it just makes it even more shady that they waited until the very last minute to do it.
There are some questions about process on this one for me because it's like either so many deals are coming out and announced now before the actual ability to sign even happens. Like, you're getting things like weeks before where they're like, yeah, well, he intends to resign. And of course they do. They know, like, a lot of these players already have their minds up and they already know what they're going to get. NFL, just stop screwing around with it. Just like make the time period much longer, earlier. Who cares? Like, these social media and the internet have changed things. It's not
Yes.
to
Yeah.
the point where people have to actually travel out and take phone calls all the time. You know what you're getting, and people know who they're signing well in advance.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that I mean the big reason there would be the Super Bowl team. Like it's an unfair advantage for them because like teams making deals while they're still actively playing is unfair. And there definitely should be rules around that. But at the same time, like any player that's good on a Super Bowl team is going to have a market when the Super Bowl is over. you know, they don't have to worry about like losing out on free agency just because they were playing in the Super Bowl.
Right, like they're clear winners and they're good players.
Yeah.
So let's just jump into the talk overall because I could sit here and talk about the Raiders all day, and I don't need to do that right now. We'll have more opportunities for that later. Let's go and let's talk about some quarterbacks that have signed in places. So Malik Willis is kind of the big name, kind of the question mark because he's got such high upside. He signed with the Dolphins, 3 years, $67.5 million. Um, this is of course the new regime that the Dolphins have in place, which Halfley is the new head coach, and they have
Mhm.
a new GM. Two is gone. He's vet minimum with the Falcons because the Dolphins are still paying him a god awful amount. I think it's like
99
99.
million.
Yeah,
Yep.
just god awful amount. So, and Tyreek Hill is gone, and then in comes Malik Willis. So Malik Willis is going to have Achan. He is going to have Waller. There we go. I was like, which one of these old tight ends are they still going to have? I think Waller's going to still be on contract if I'm right.
I think he might. I think he. I don't know if he's signed yet, but I think that he's in negotiations.
Fair.
If he doesn't retire.
Yeah, it's either retirement or he'll be back in Miami. I'd be shocked if he goes anywhere else.
Yeah.
And they're going to have Waddle to throw to, so it's not the worst situation, excepting for the fact that their offensive minded head coach is gone, and he's replaced with a defensive minded head coach. Their offensive line, from what I can tell, is still going to be pretty rough
Yeah.
at best. But Malik Willis is a guy who can move a lot, and that's typically a really good thing. And if Tua was the piece that was holding him back, this is going to be such a different team with a different head coach. I mean, I'm trying to make some pieces happen here and like come up with something, but to me, this is a big question mark. I think Malik Willis has shown that he could be a competent quarterback, but he also did that in Green Bay,
Yeah.
and that's a team that's a competent team. Miami, I don't know that I would call them a competent team.
I agree. I feel like I view this signing, and the money wise is actually quite similar, which is really good for the Dolphins. But I view it as a higher upside version. Honestly, possibly much significant higher upside version of Justin Fields to the Jets last year, where you have his mobile quarterback who, obviously Fields had more starts, but who's been in the league a few years, and this is like his second chance. Well, I mean, Fields was third, but like, this is the chance to like actually have a viable quarterback option in fantasy. And obviously the loss of Tyreek Hill and only having really, Waddle as a known piece besides Achan is, not great for a quarterback. But I think that Malik Willis definitely has the opportunity here to not only like prove himself as a good starting QB and an upgrade over Tua, but like with his rushing ability, he can prove to be a really viable fantasy quarterback, late round fantasy quarterback, and one I think that is going to have a good connection with Devon Achan, in terms of like this being, quite possibly a run focused team, which is, and I mean, Malik's a good passer. I don't want to knock him. Like, he's not like Fields where he's just a really good runner who passes sometimes. Like, Malik actually did show himself to be a good passer in Green Bay and in college. So I do really like the signing for the Dolphins and for fantasy. I think that Willis, I think, has the opportunity to like, prove himself. And the fact that they signed him to a 3-year deal is also cool because like it's not just like he's not just coming in like, if it was a 1-year deal, I would view it as like, okay, maybe they're gonna draft somebody, or like it's gonna be a camp battle with Quinn Ewers. But like this is like he's the starter at this point. That's cool.
My questions are going to be like, what does this offense look like without Mike McDaniel, right?
Yeah.
Because Mike McDaniel, he made up for their porous O line by using trickery and timing, and he was really good at that. And that's also why Achan was such a great pass catcher, is because you could always find a way to get him open near the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
Now, Malik Willis, he has the ability, I think, to do that. Now, I want to see one of two things. I either want to see that same kind of level of trickery still present, or at least movement, or I want to see their O line getting significantly better.
Yeah.
And I'm worried that if they don't, then that the pass catchers are going to suffer pretty roughly, and Achan himself may suffer because that offense. The thing with Achan is that like he is so good. However, when he was like 80% of the offense, they weren't winning games. They could only start winning games once they were getting their downfield threats involved again.
Mm-hmm.
So they can't be looking at it and saying, okay, well, here's what we need to do is we need to pass the ball to Achan 38 times 'cause that just isn't how you win. You want HN to be running wild, but you also need Waddle to be involved. You need I forget, is it Malik Washington that's the other player on
Yeah,
their team? You need these guys to get involved. Like you have to have someone out there actually catching the passes. And if that offensive line, for all the bad we say about Tua, he was so good with his timing. He really was, especially at this team. And if they lose that function, or if Malik doesn't have that same level of skill, this offensive line is going to give him issues.
exactly. And like HN's such a good runner, but like you were saying, he was so good in the league and in fantasy because he was able to get open and catch passes. But if the Dolphins have a very porous offense, then they're going to be playing from behind the entire time, and they can't just run the ball with HN because like they're going to be behind. So it's just it's tricky, and I agree. I think the two things that I want to monitor is like what do the Dolphins do in free agency, the tackle market's starting to dry up, but there's still some players out there. And then you watch them in the draft. Like, if they take like a first round tackle, then that shows that they're going to commit to focusing on the offense and particularly, I think, the run game. So that's something to watch. My apprehension here is that they hired Bobby Slowick, the former Texans OC, as their new OC, and I'm only apprehensive because we saw night and day really with him. With he was the OC with CJ Stroud's rookie year, and then CJ Stroud's sophomore year, and a lot of that could also be blamed on the really bad O line in Houston, but he's coming into another really bad O line in Miami. So it's like unless Malik Willis is as talented in his first year like CJ Stroud was under Slowick, it's difficult to get excited because Stroud and Willis are such vastly different quarterbacks, and now they have the same OC. It's a weird kind of fit. I don't know. I just wonder how that's going to look.
This
Um,
guy just wants to go to all the teams that Laramie Tunsil is no longer at, right? Is that
yeah,
the deal?
yeah, he'll be on the Washington next.
Okay, let's move on to the next one here. Well, I'll just quickly brief over these guys. So Jacoby Brissett's likely going to be the Cardinals' starting quarterback of 2026. We saw him hyper target Mike Wilson.
Mhm.
So Mike Wilson, man, you should keep an eye on him. I know a lot of people will probably be talking about him later, but
Big
if they're
Brian
keeping
too. Big
Brissett,
Brian.
dude,
Yeah,
Big Brad's gonna be a first rounder. I already will call that. Like, there's no reason he wouldn't be. And then Daniel Jones got his contract with the Colts. Regardless of how his Achilles injury goes, will likely be the starter head quarterback for the Colts next year.
yeah.
Where was it that Michael Pittman Jr. got traded to?
I just realized I was updating this as we started talking because I forgot to include a very significant receiver trade in my wide receiver section I wrote up, and I also forgot to include Pittman. He got traded to the Steelers and signed a 3-year
Mhm.
extension.
So,
And I forgot to include Alec Pierce. Okay, one second.
yeah, Pittman, if I'm going to go ahead and make a guess at another quarterback here, Anthony Richardson and the Steelers. That looks a lot juicier to me all of a sudden now that Pittman's there.
I already mentioned that as an option. I think if I agree. I think if the Colts do find a market for Richardson, the Steelers make the most sense. 100%.
Yeah, and then bringing in Pittman, who is a competent receiver. Like star, I have a hard time saying, but he's very competent. He could be a star potentially. And if you're going to bring in a quarterback who maybe has some issues with experience, and you want to bring in a friend, and
Yeah.
Pittman might be that friend. I could see this being the reason. But anyways, Daniel Jones resigns with the Colts, so Indiana Jones still a thing. We'll get to see if the beginning of this last year was a fluke, or if it was something that was real. After the Achilles tear, though, I will say this immediately: be wary of this next year. He signed a 2-year contract, from what I recall.
Yeah, which is
Um,
I think a good number. Like it's not just like a
mhm.
1 year and they have to do it all over again, and it's not like this year contract where it's like, is it going to work out? Like, I mean, we saw Jones do that with the Giants, so I think 2 years is really a good sweet spot.
Yeah, and I think it's a good idea on the Colts' behalf, because this next year it could be a little rough. From what we've seen with quarterbacks immediately after Achilles tears, is it's not the same. And Daniel
Mhm.
Jones was a pretty mobile quarterback, so you come in with Achilles tear, it's just going to look different. So the year after that is where I would be really excited as a Colts fan.
Yeah, like yeah, 2027.
Hmm.
I,
Although, of course,
I think regardless, it's still Shane Steichen. It's still like Jonathan Taylor. Like I think this is good news for like JT. it's the same offensive system.
And there's not like a lot of different quarterbacks out there that they could get. So bringing in Daniel Jones, who they saw have, frankly, MVP caliber play at the beginning of last season, is a
Yeah,
great choice.
I agree. And Kyler Murray still hasn't signed. I've heard a lot of rumors of him going to Minnesota, which I think is a fantastic choice for him. Um, I'm still a Kyler defender just because we saw such good things from him a couple years ago. And I think if he unites with Kevin O'Connell, I think he very easily wins the job from JJ McCarthy. So Kyler to Justin Jefferson could be very interesting in fantasy if Kyler is up to what he was in the past. And I think he could be in Minnesota.
I think that's fair. And Kyler, if you don't remember, or if you're newer to fantasy football, he was an elite quarterback option for a few years. Just fantastic. It fell off pretty hardcore under Gannon.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that it has to stay that way, especially if it goes up to Kevin O'Connell, like you said. The Jets traded for Geno Smith. It cost them pretty much nothing, but that is presumably who the starting quarterback of the Jets will be next year. And let me tell you, he's really good at getting you a first overall pick. So
that's the logic here, I think.
I don't. I guess, do you care about the news really at all? Like Garrett Wilson is someone who's important. Brees Hall is someone who's important, but like doesn't matter.
I mean, I like Brees just because Jets O-line is really good. and it's been good. That's all I got excited about there.
So you have Fernando Mendoza certainly going to the Raiders. I would like if it doesn't, it's going to be the shock of the drafting century, and I will be officially angry.
Yeah.
Ty Simpson, where does he go?
I was looking at like the draft and the order and stuff, and it the three teams that really just make the most sense are the Jets, obviously with Geno there, the Cardinals, Jacoby Brissett, and the Browns, who have 2 first-round picks and are currently starting Shedeur Sanders. So the Browns probably make the most sense. I mean, just god awful all around if you're Ty Simpson, unless like the Steelers maybe take him, but I haven't heard a lot of rumors about that. I mean, Simpson is basically this year's Jackson Dart, where he's not like going to be a first round QB most years or every year, but like he has enough like intangible NFL specific quarterback skills where he's going to get drafted pretty early in a weak year. And I wouldn't say he's a lock in the first round, but he's a lock to get drafted in the top 50 and possibly start at some point next year. So he's one to watch. There's not really a lot to say about him in fantasy, just because he didn't have a great supporting cast in Alabama, and he's a pretty traditional pocket passer. So not really a lot to get excited about there, but he's probably going to go to a pretty crappy team. And, I wish him the best.
I could see the Jets pulling the trigger on Simpson.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it's necessarily the best move that they can make, but I could see it happening simply because if they get the first overall next year or if they get a top 5 pick, and I know there's other quarterbacks, so just let me, I'm playing out a story in my head right now.
Mm-hmm.
And they choose Archie Manning. I can see Archie saying no, pulling the good old Eli and just like, I'm not going there. We're not doing this version of New York again. Trade me to whoever's next.
I agree. And I also like the argument that like, why would you take Ty Simpson if you're going to draft a quarterback next year? Like it's a mulligan. Like the Jets have 3 first round picks next year. If you draft him, start Geno like half a season, Simpson takes over. Simpson doesn't look good. Like, I mean, the Cardinals moved on from Josh Rosen after 1 season. Like you can trade Simpson for like a 3rd or 4th round pick and then just start over. Like it's not complicated.
I have to imagine though, where this comes down to me is like, what's going on in Aaron Glenn's mind? Is Aaron Glenn safe? Because after the way list last year went, I would go ahead and say he shouldn't be. But is he? Because if he is safe, then the mulligan year might be the best option for him. And if he's not safe, then I think he has to try something drastic to make things work. And Geno's not something drastic. If he thinks that Geno's going to come out here and be like the guy he needs him to be, I thought that at one point too. That's what I'll say. So
I feel like the Jets have to have at least some progress this year. I mean, I don't just mean like a little bit because obviously they can only go up, but um, they have to be like on a path to like something kind of like how the Raiders are this year, like rebuilding, but like with promise. Otherwise, I think they're going to start over with a new QB and coach. Um,
Yeah, because if Aaron Glenn ends up with the first overall pick next year,
yeah,
he's going to get sacked. He's not going to get another head coaching opportunity. So that's where I could see them really trying hard at something this year. Which would it's one of these catch-22s. It sucks for the franchise, but also like it sucks for the head coach.
yeah.
That these two are going to be like at different odds on some of these decisions. But I think it could be really important. Okay. Anything else you have to say about quarterbacks?
I did just want to mention not it's not fantasy relevant in the slightest, but I do like the Falcons signing Tua. I think that's a great deal because him and Penix are both left-handed QBs, and I feel like it's been under talked that Penix tore his Achilles. It's like his third significant knee injury in 5 years, and that was like pretty late in the season that happened. So I don't think Penix is starting week 1 next year. I would be very, very surprised. It was a pretty significant injury.
Yeah, when he tore his ACL, I think the reason it doesn't get talked about is that it didn't look like an ACL tear. Almost everyone was a little bit confused, and I think it happened at the very end of a game,
I
and then
think
he was just gone, right? And it was on the Falcons last season, so it was like, okay, well, is he really that hurt, or is he was really that hurt?
yeah.
And as the second, it was the opposite knee of the one that he's already tore twice. So now both of his knees are ACL repaired, and this was the worry about Penix. This was the reason why people thought he was going to be a late first, second round quarterback was
Yeah.
because his knees they've been demolished over and over again.
And he has the injury history and he doesn't have the access to the advanced medical support that like someone like Mahomes does. Like Mahomes tore his ACL later in the season, but only by a few weeks. And like it's not even comparable. Like, I mean, Penix, I don't see Penix starting week 1. So getting Tua, as much as I think he should retire, I think that was like a great move by the Falcons. He
Yeah,
can
and
keep him in the South in the warm too.
yeah, right. This will be a good question. And this, I'm sorry for everyone in advance. Someone's gonna get offended by me saying this, but like, what do you think lasts longer, Tua's brain or Penix's knees?
I think that you need to like do a little switcheroo and like take out Tua's brain, put it in Michael's body. No, maybe I don't know.
Just give,
Something like
give
that.
Penix
Maybe
everything.
we should do some Frankenstein.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the running backs. And I will say Kirk Cousins is going somewhere. We'll find out where. So keep an eye on that. There's a chance he's starting somewhere at the start of the next year. And who knows what really Kirk's capable of at this point. It didn't look great last time we saw, but again, it was the first year off an Achilles when he had his opportunity, and then with a team that clearly didn't really want him around that much.
Yeah.
Cousins just had a real weird situation. Similar to the beginning of his career, this part of his career has been a weird situation. So
I think if Rodgers doesn't sign to the Steelers, he goes there or he goes to Vegas to mentor Fernando.
yeah, and that makes sense to me. Fernando seems very Kirk Cousins like as far as their public presence.
Mm-hmm.
However, with that said, just give it to AOC, guys. Like, just let him do his thing. He's been on this team and he's been just sitting there waiting for so long, and he's not great, but he ain't that bad. Come on, let him do his thing.
He's solid enough. Better than Kenny Pickett, yeah.
Yeah, let him play for 4 games, then bring in Fernando.
Yeah.
Just let the man play. Okay, let's talk about running backs. So first one we're going to talk about is the current Super Bowl MVP, Kenneth Walker, the third, and he made the worst decision of his life and went to the Chiefs. I'm just kidding. That's not fair. He went to the Chiefs, 3 years, $43 million. Of course, this is a Chiefs team that was already in desperate need for running back help, and then they lost Pacheco, who went to the Lions. So they had absolutely no one. That means Kenneth Walker is who was the rookie this last year for the Chiefs that had some potential?
Brashard Smith.
Yeah, and I don't think that he's enough to really matter. So Kenneth Walker looks like just next year he's going to be a smash. Like he's going to fly off the draft boards very early. And this is one of those picks that I think actually really improves the Chiefs just immediately. Because this is one of the things that the Chiefs desperately didn't have. They didn't have a running game. And it wasn't that their offensive line was just awful. It's just that they didn't have anyone to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't rely on Kareem Hunt and an injured Pacheco for that long and then
And
expect something good to happen.
and they literally did. I mean, for 2 years, they had, Kareem Hunt and Pacheco. Like, that was their running game. I think I read somewhere that they and I don't really know exactly what this means. I kind of have an idea, but apparently the Chiefs ranked dead last in running back explosive win rate in 2025, and I guess it was one of the worst explosive run rates for running back committee in the 21st century and of all time, just like abysmal. And if you watched the Chiefs games and looked at their roster, it's pretty obvious like their running game was literally on the goal line, and that was it. So you get Kenneth Walker in there, who's like a very explosive running back. It's a really good fit for the Chiefs and just something that they really needed.
Hmm. Now they had to downgrade their defense a little bit to make this all work out, but it'll probably be something that's worthwhile for them because realistically, Mahomes shouldn't be your leading rusher. That's a bad use of his talents,
Yeah.
and that's what he was a lot of the games last year. And you could see that it was just that there was no burst. There was absolutely zero burst from any of these running backs. It's like if the hole wasn't created for them and open for a long time, they weren't going to get much positive out of it.
Yeah.
Kenneth Walker can get positive out of nothing, so I hate this pick, and not this pick. Excuse me. I hate this choice and signing because I really think it makes the Chiefs a better team. And this is what every AFC West fan should know right now is that when the Chiefs finish poorly, you shouldn't expect that to be the future.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, last year was an anomaly, I think.
Mhm. Mhm. I hope they're not first again, but there's no reason for them to drop off like such. So Kenneth Walker, awesome choice. Shame on him for doing it, but awesome choice for everybody else involved in himself, of course. And congrats, Kenneth Walker, on Super Bowl MVP. Awesome story, awesome game, just great stuff.
I
Uh,
agree. I like this fit. I think that my only apprehension is that like if the name value with the Chiefs and then the Super Bowl MVP gets in the mix and Walker like gets inflated to the second round, I think that's too early for me, and I could totally see that happening.
I
I
I
think
think you're wild for saying second round. I think he's going to be an end of first guy easy.
really, I mean, it's certainly possible that he gets that much hype, because of it's the Chiefs. I would not take him earlier than the third, at least not knowing what we know right now. I think they're going to maybe bring in somebody else as well, and the media will just kind of gloss over that. Um, I don't hate Kenneth Walker. I was a big Charbonnet defender last year, but I do have to say like Charbonnet was used equally, if not more than Walker, sometimes to a fault in Seattle, and Walker had his legacy run when Charbonnet was out. And again, that kind of contradicts my point because like he proved he was great when he was the only back, which is what he is right now in Kansas City. I don't know. I do like the fit. I'm worried about the fantasy inflation.
Yeah, I think he'll easily go in the back of the first. I've seen this with the Chiefs. Every time they get a promising running back, everyone wants it to be the thing, so they all jump on it. And even me, as a resident Chiefs hater here, I look at it and I go, man, I could see that working out so phenomenally. Like, get the load off of Mahomes' shoulders. Like, finally, they don't have to care about their wide receivers being hot garbage or Rasheed Rice. Who knows what's going to happen with Rasheed Rice?
Yeah.
No one. This does move Jeremiah Love into a weird position, I think, now where this is like the hot spot for him landing, where he would have definitely gone in the first.
Yeah.
So, who knows? We don't have to talk about that yet. I will get into draft at some other point. Um, let's talk about Travis Etienne. He goes to the Saints, 4 years, 52 mil. That's bringing him back to Kellen Moore, who or he not bringing him back to Kellen Moore. It unites him with Kellen Moore, who coached with the Saquon Barkley in Philly, and Kamara's in theory still there.
Kind of. Yeah.
It's interesting. So you got Travis Etienne, you've got Kamara. Kamara's clearly on the other side of the hill at this point. And the theory was last year is that he was sitting so many games so they could save him for this year when it might actually matter.
Hmm.
And then Travis Etienne's there. Now the Saints have had a very productive 2 RB scheme for quite a while when it was working. But that's also Sean Payton. This is a whole different sort of thing. Kellen Moore, from what I've seen, isn't really that much of a 2 RB guy
Hmm.
outside of maybe I don't remember it working very well for him in Dallas. I in LA it did, but that's just because that was the way their team was set up before he got there.
Yeah.
And
And
then
you
in Philly, it was Saquon. You don't do 2 RB with Saquon.
No.
So I do wonder with Kamara how much he's going to be involved in this. Travis Etienne had a phenomenal year last year and then a terrible year the year before. So
Hmm.
the question here is going to be how much do you think that Travis Etienne, the talent, is the reason for his success, and how much do you think that the scheme is the reason for his success?
It's hard because 2 years ago ETN had a really great year, and that was with Doug Peterson, and last year was his first year in Liam Cohen's system. So I think I do like this fit a lot. I actually am wondering now too because, like you said, Kellen Moore, like historically with Saquon, and then like Tony Pollard in Dallas, he like had that one running back who was the focal point. But ETN, especially last year, he was the primary guy in Jacksonville, but they still had Bashal Tootin there for like so many like third and fourth downs. So ETN has never been uh like and then there was James Robinson, or I forget who was in between, but he's never been like the like premier number one back, and like this is probably the most open backfield he's had to himself in his NFL career. But I do really like the fit. I like that the Saints went out and paid some money to a running back to help out Tyler Shuck. And the Saints, things could change at the draft, but they don't have a lot of great pass catching options outside of Olave. So I mean, if Shuck and ETN have a really good chemistry, like it could just be like chucking it to ETN on second down over and over and over again, and that could be great for PPR. And the Saints have a good O line, so I think this is exciting if you're a Saints fan, and I think that ETN will be drafted high, but he's not going to skyrocket like a Kenneth Walker is. So his value could still stay pretty good.
Now, can I just? My mind stopped on something you said there. You said chucking it to ETN, but I think that should be rebranded as shucking it to ETN.
100%.
And I was also thinking, of course, getting ETN in Louisiana, New Orleans of all places, is the perfect fit because I'm not a linguist. I don't know. I can be ignorant American dude sometimes, but ETN feels like the exact right name for New Orleans.
ETN, like a Creole kind of thing, or like a easy.
Yeah. Because it's like the way it's spelled reminds me of French. See, this is where I'm losing my life, my thing here, because ETN is a classic French masculine name.
Okay. Oh yeah. I mean, I took French for like a few years, but I don't remember it. But it sounds about right.
This is neither here nor there. It just feels like a good fit. Yeah, I'm curious. Let's talk about David Montgomery. Move on. David Montgomery goes to the Texans. This wasn't a free agency. This was a trade. So they traded a 4th and 7th and their center, Juice Scruggs, to the Lions to get David Montgomery. David Montgomery, who famously was very angry at the Lions for the way they treated his position last year with Gibbs. And yeah, so David Montgomery, I think, becomes the clear, obvious back in this because Woody Marks is still there. Woody Marks also was a good pass catcher, so this is a good you have David Montgomery there as the obvious runner.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say he's taking over the Nick Chubb role. I do, but I don't think it's that simple because he'll have more opportunities than Nick Chubb because Nick Chubb, with all of the difficulties he had getting back into the NFL, clearly wasn't the same player as he was before.
Yeah.
David Montgomery, while older, has shown a lot of success still. Like he is a very talented runner. Does this make you excited for David Montgomery as the opportunity to have a larger role in fantasy next year?
Okay, I think that the Texans again still need to address their O-line woes because I mean the Lions O-line was banged up last year, but it's still better than the Texans O-line. So I mean, especially like a runner like Montgomery, he needs a really healthy O-line. But I do think that he's going to get a lot more opportunity than he got in Detroit, even though he's not on as good of an offense. I think that I mean, like a 4th and a 7th and a center isn't like a huge trade haul, but it really is for like a running back who's almost 30. Like that shows that the Texans are like, especially a Texans team that has some holes. Like they're showing that like, hey Montgomery, like we're gonna go out and like, go for you. It's possible the Lions even could have cut him and they signed him in free agency. Like they wanted Montgomery. So I actually do like Montgomery next year. I think that he's going to be used a lot. I mean, you kind of have to worry about injuries, but like, I mean, that's just, you can't really predict that. So I think on paper, at least, this is I think Montgomery's going to be used a lot, and especially on the goal line, if the Texans can get it in the red zone, I think that Montgomery's the clear like goal line back here, and that's exciting for his value.
Yeah, my hope here is with the Texans as a whole is that this actually is really good for CJ Stroud in the passing attack because I think having the running back situation they did last year and the O line that they had last year is a really bad situation for someone like CJ Stroud, because he's not like he's not stationary, but he's not the most mobile quarterback, and his processing time isn't as like fast as a lot of other quarterbacks, right? So giving him the ability to have someone he can hand it off to that the other team might actually see as a threat, and if
Mhm.
it works out that way, is going to be super helpful for that whole team
I agree.
in my mind. So I like this trade a lot from the Texans standpoint. From the Montgomery standpoint, I think he's going to have value. I'm curious about how much. He feels like he's going to be a for sure dead zone level running back next year, like 4th to 6th round, and you just have to either hope it works or it doesn't.
That's exactly my thoughts. I do like his upside in the sense that like if you take like Bijan in the first and then kick the can on your RB2 and you get Montgomery in the 5th or 6th, like that's you could feel good about your team. I like that.
Yeah, he might be one of those like you can get two from the same team and see what happens because with him and Woody, who knows really who's going to have the better season. David Montgomery seems poised for it, but Woody might be the guy. However, the Texans defense is so out of their mind, unreal that if they have a running back that finally works for them, he's going to be gold.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good perspective.
Okay, let's talk about Tyler Algier. There was a lot of interest in where he was going because as an RB2 in Atlanta, he was still putting up good productive numbers, and that was behind Bijan. So now he goes over to the Cardinals. So he signed a 2-year, 12.25 million deal. He's there with James Conner, Trey Benson. They're both there, in theory, healthy.
In theory, yeah.
And now, so they've got Connor, Benson, and Algier. This to me pushes Benson just into the unuseful. You
Yeah.
can just forget his name for fantasy next year, likely.
Yeah.
It'll be Algier and Connor. Connor has had a lot of success with the Cardinals, and then Algier, who is a great runner and maybe just underutilized. I could see Algier taking over this backfield, and I think he could be a fantastic potentially late round pick as an RB flyer.
Yeah, I think that there's a risk involved here because one, the Cardinals offense, and two, like Connor and Benson are still there. But I mean, Algier, like he doesn't have a lot of tread on the tires. Like he had 1,000-yard season as a rookie, a late round rookie, and then Bijan showed up and he's been a fantastic RB2 to Bijan. He just hasn't gotten a lot of usage. And I think that he absolutely drafting running backs from bad teams is always a risk also inherently. But I mean, I think Algier absolutely has I don't want to put like this on him and I don't expect this, but like he has like that Javonte Williams kind of upside where it's like this cheap signing to a team that needed a running back and the options around him are murky and like it's it's entirely possible that Algier just shows up and is like that fantastic like heavy usage running back that he has the potential to be. So I like him a lot if he doesn't go super high in drafts, which I don't think he will. I think Connors could still get drafted before him because of name value. Benson, was taken high in the draft and he's only a year 3 player, but he's been injured a lot too. So I'm actually really excited about Algier as a sleeper.
Yeah, I would guess that the regime change in not Atlanta, Arizona is going to just. I don't think they have any faith in Benson at this point. They saw what happened. Immediately gets injured as soon as they needed him the most, and they're like, okay, well, can't trust that, so we're going to move on a little bit.
Yeah.
Rico Dowdle, he goes to the Steelers. He's also 2 years, 12.25 million. He gets to reunite with Mike McCarthy, and Kenneth Gainwell is now backing up Bucky. I think I gave this in the wrong order. Anyways, it's neither here nor there. Rico Dowdle is with the Steelers. Oh no, okay, I know why. Because Kenneth Gainwell was on the Steelers last year. Silly me.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm parsing out information as I speak. Sorry, again, sick kid. You got to give me some grace here. So Kenneth Gainwell had an awesome year last year, but this coaching staff has changed very dramatically. Is Arthur Smith still there?
He went to Ohio State actually.
Thank God, get that guy out of the NFL. Okay, so Rico Dowdle, he is going to be awesome. That's a great landing spot for Rico Dowdle. Man, I love that. Okay, so Rico Dowdle has a pretty big opportunity here.
He does, because I mean, there's Caleb Johnson, who is non-existent, and who was with? I guess I don't know
Warren.
if Warren's still there. I don't know if it really matters. I mean, Dowdle has just shown a lot more, like, not consistency, but a lot more upside. That's my favorite word, upside. Shown a lot more upside than Warren, I think. And he's reuniting with Mike McCarthy, who he played with in Dallas, had his breakout year with McCarthy there a couple years ago. So I think this is a pretty slam dunk pick.
Yeah, me too. Okay, this is probably out of the ones that we've read so far, outside of Kenneth Walker, but Kenneth Walker is going to be overdrafted.
Yeah,
Rico Dowdle feels like the clear, great pick, great talent, has a great opportunity here, and Jalen Warren. If I were playing this smart, I would put Jalen Warren back in the role that we've seen him succeed at the most, which
yeah,
is the pass catching role, because he's really good at that. And Rico Dowdle has shown to be a really good runner in multiple situations at this point. Why move away from that? Like, let Rico do his thing, let Jalen do his thing, and let's go to work on this.
mhm,
And the Steelers, with their murky quarterback situation next year, regardless, are going to be an interesting team to watch, because if it's Anthony Richardson and it's not Aaron Rodgers, the run game is going to be so important to this
oh
team.
yeah, oh yeah,
Even if it's Aaron Rodgers, it should be so important. Like, let's be real. If it's 46, is he going to be 46 during that season? I don't know. Either which way. If it's ancient Aaron Rodgers, they're going to need the run game to work, because I think that was a big part of what was happening last year. So that Kenneth Gainwell was doing work, but that was only person who could show up.
yeah. As a runner on that consistent basis, and I mean, Rico, like, we saw him. I believe he was there, like, by himself in Dallas a couple years ago, and he was really, really good. And then last year, like, Chuba Hubbard was a really solid back, and he, like, was like the not the RB1 there, but he was 1B. And, like, now, like, again, Warren has shown he's been talented, but I agree, getting him back to that role as a pass catcher is good. And I think Rico has, like, a really good chance to be very viable in fantasy.
Yeah, I love that pick. Kenneth Gainwell also. I'll talk about it real quick because we did mention it. If he's the backup for Bucky Irving and you're someone who gets Bucky Irving, that might be interest, because Kenneth Gainwell has shown in multiple situations, when he's given the opportunity in the right role, he can be very productive.
Yeah, elite handcuff.
Brees Hall stays with the Jets. Javonte Williams stays with the Cowboys. J.K. Dobbins stays with the Broncos. Unfortunate for R.J. Harvey fanatics is that J.K. Dobbins is probably going to just do good again next year. He's just that sort of guy, it seems like.
Yeah, he's not gonna. RJ's not gonna have the field to himself.
No, where do you think Javonte goes this year? Third round?
That's a great question. I don't know. That's actually, he's very hard to predict, because, like, recency bias is a big thing in fantasy, and that would suggest he goes, third or even second. But I don't know.
I don't want to be the one making that pick, but I understand
yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly. That's the thing. I feel like maybe there's an apprehension to think that he does the same thing again next year, which I think he could. But yeah, he's a hard one.
Mm-hmm. It almost seems likely that he would. I don't see a real reason why he wouldn't. However, gosh, man, if I drafted Javonte Williams in the third round, I'd feel real bad about myself. Let me tell you that much. So I don't know. Is there any other running backs you want to talk about specifically before we move on to wide receivers?
No, it's pretty much dried up. I think, like, the best free agent running back is, like, Najee right now. So we're looking at the draft from here on out.
Yeah, there's to be said that the Clint Kubiak has come out I talk about the Raiders all the time because it's what I read about. But Clint has come out and said he does want a second RB in Las Vegas that he can use, similar to how they used in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to tell you, Zamir White ain't that dude.
Well,
and so
there's
who else
there's another White on the market I forgot to mention, and I've heard rumors of Seattle, but Rashad White is leaving Tampa.
Yeah, okay, Rashad White could work. I could also see if they could somehow pull, like, Sean Tucker if he's not there still.
Yeah,
And one of the Tampa backs sounds like a good plan. Oh.
Yeah, solid backup.
Okay, so let's talk about wide receivers. There's been a handful of wide receivers who've moved around. The first we're going to talk about is the likely Hall of Fame wide receiver, almost certainly Hall of Fame. I have to say likely
Hope
because he's not there yet, but I couldn't imagine him not getting in. Mike Evans from the Buccaneers. He is now in San Francisco. They're paying him 60.4 mil for 3 years. Jawan, we don't know what's going on with him. Ayuk's he's gone. Kendrick Bourne's gone. Kittle got an Achilles tear in the playoffs.
Yeah.
He's not going to be there. So Mike Evans, it might just be the dude in San Francisco. Like who else? What other dudes are going to be there? Who knows?
I mean, even if they re-sign Jawan and draft a receiver in the first or second, like this is like big for Mike Evans. This is like the biggest like sole like wide receiver one opportunity he's had in a few years. Like where he's like the wide receiver one, it seems like de facto. That's big.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So you still have Pearsall there. So Pearsall is going to be the other guy. I would be shocked personally if Jawan Jennings resigns in San Francisco because I think there's bad blood there after the way they handled his contract with Ayuk
Yeah.
also getting paid and him not getting paid.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be shocked either if the draft ends up mattering for this particular question. But Mike Evans, the hard part with Mike Evans for me, and of course he goes to the 49ers with what I'm about to say is that he's old and he keeps getting injured and it's not his fault. Like the body breaks down, you know? And he's going to go to San Francisco where everyone knows what the issue with San Francisco players are in fantasy.
Yeah.
And it's that it's just they can't stay healthy unless you're whichever one has been guessed to be the least healthy person on the team, then you do stay healthy, which maybe that works in Mike Evans' favor this season. So there's clear cons here, but there's like also a lot of upside and pros. I also want to see what he looks like in a Shanahan offense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, dude, do you just see him just like being that dude, or because I don't know how versatile Mike Evans is.
He's been to the same team his entire career. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Evans, I do want to push back. I mean, he did break his collarbone last year, but that doesn't affect his play. And he's had 1,000 yards every single year. So he's not really injury prone at all. But again, he also is getting older, and that's just that likelihood skyrockets.
The injuries that scare me with Mike Evans are those hammies because
Yeah,
they
right.
do keep happening. Yeah.
Yeah. I was looking at the contract and it's slightly less per year than what Devontae got in LA, but it's 3 years instead of 2. So I mean, early pick here, like I think was Evans your Doinker last year? And
Yeah.
Evans was mine. I think Evans is like that kind of, at least on paper, that Devontae role that we saw this veteran go to a new team. And I mean, the sky is the limit, I think, with Evans. I think he's like an early Doinker for me, just based on this fit and the need for this team. I think there's a lot to get excited about, especially with Kittle out for the year. Like that's, yeah.
One of the early picks for me this year, and I don't know, I'm not locking this in, but like Jake McTonges,
Good. Yeah.
he's gonna have a great year with Kittle gone. Like he's gonna be someone who doesn't really get drafted, and he's gonna just have a fantastic, solid year. I bet.
I can see it.
DJ Moore, he got traded, and I'm just spacing on where he got traded to. Of course, as soon as I say his name, so he went to the Buffalo Bills. That's right. So he got traded for 2nd and 5th. Buffalo Bills got him. Josh Allen has someone who is wide receiver 1 pedigree again. And DJ Moore is like up and down. You don't really know what you're gonna get with DJ Moore in a lot of the situations, but he hasn't been in such a good situation. Arguably ever.
I mean, no. I mean, he's wide receiver 1, 100% in a good team. Like he was wide receiver 1 in Carolina and early Chicago years, but he was not on a good team.
Yeah, and then of course when he got a good team in Chicago, there was young blood coming in with a new scheme and a new system. So, do you think that we see DJ Moore kind of do what Stephon Diggs did when he came to Buffalo, where he goes from being an okay piece of a team with clear talent to an immediate wide receiver 1 to 5 upside potential guy?
I want to say no. I haven't really thought about him in terms of fantasy just yet, just because I've been so, I'm gonna say honestly, elated that this trade went down. The fact that the Bears got DJ Moore for a second round pick is blows my mind. Like, not no, like, no hating on DJ Moore, and like he had the worst year of his career statistically, I think, last year, but that's because of, the competition. He doesn't have that, so that's not really on him. And he's a really good receiver. He never misses games. He plays through like minor injuries all the time. He's very, very good competitor. But I mean, you look at, there was another recent trade. Like George Pickens, he went to the Cowboys for a third round pick. He's a much younger player. Hasn't shown as much as DJ Moore had up until that point. But the fact that the Bills get DJ Moore for a second is just like, or the Bears get a second for DJ Moore is like, I'm so happy with that. I mean, with the core that the Bears have, and like DJ Moore, we did not need him anymore. Like, I think it's maybe a little bit of an overpay by the Bills. Honestly, I don't think it's a good trade for the Bills, even though Moore is that number one that Josh Allen needs, and their GM Brandon Beane can't draft receiver talent to save his life.
I was gonna say, are you telling me that Brandon Beane made a bad trade? Are you
It's a
telling me that
panic
Brandon
move.
Beane made another mistake?
It's a panic move. I love it for the Bears. In fantasy with the Bills, I want to say I love it, but I feel like Moore is going to get overdrafted. I'm not too excited.
Yeah, so Joe Brady's still there, so we know what the offense is going to look like because it's kind of, in theory, should be very similar to the same offense as what we've seen.
And Brady and DJ Moore were together in Carolina when Brady was the OC there.
I like it for the one reason is that we have seen the need for it so heavily that I could see him just like, whenever you're gonna panic throw, just throw it to DJ Moore. Like, who cares at this point? Like, you don't care about Terrell. Shakir is okay. Coleman, they clearly hate. They've said as much as from what I can tell. So, like, DJ Moore's got to be the guy on the game plan that is like just hit him. And so, from like a volume standpoint, I don't think the Bills want to be the high volume passing team, but yeah, I'm interested. I guess it's gonna be where he ends up
Yeah,
because I can see a lot of ways this doesn't work, but I can also see like a couple of giant ways where the upside is almost unlimited, which is crazy because DJ Moore has been stuck in a weird spot for so long. You forget how good he is.
yeah. And again, he doesn't get injured. He's
Mhm.
consistent.
He was a top wide receiver with Justin Fields. I mean, think about that. Um, Alec Pierce, my man, got paid. Alec Pierce he got $116 million for 4 years. And I'm going to be the unfortunate person to immediately say this one hurt because it felt like a massive overpay.
I feel like I'm missing something here. Again, like, you got to look at the NFL, not just fantasy. And like, Pierce was boomer bust in fantasy, but he's a great deep field threat and like great real life player. But I mean, what was he doing the first 3 years? Again, the Colts offense was dysfunctional, but he wasn't like nowhere near, nowhere near this level of payday. And then he has one good year. I'm really kind of just like, yeah, I don't. People were talking about the Christian Kirk signing a few years ago when he went to Jacksonville, and that was an overpay. This is like so much crazier than that.
I look at this and here's my thought. The Colts are kind of in a weird position with Jim Irsay's passing, and kind of what it means in a power vacuum, right? And they have Philip Rivers come in,
Hmm.
and Philip Rivers finds his best friend Alec Pierce.
Hmm.
And I think that Philip Rivers was like, "You need to resign that guy no matter what you do. He's the best person on this team. Trust me, this is the guy who's the most important to make this offense work." And they're just like, "Sure, yep, bet. Okay, we'll
We'll do
offer him
it.
the moon, keep him." And I'm not here to hate on Alec Pierce, but it's so much money. It's so much money. And I
$29
can
million a year.
like even his good year last year wasn't $29 million a year. I can't see this working out. I would just be shocked if this worked out for the Colts the way they need it to make this deal look like a good deal.
Let's see, how much is Justin Jefferson making per year? Justin Jefferson is making $35 million a year.
So 6 less than Justin Jefferson, which I guess if you compare last year, that was a pretty good
Well,
deal.
okay, yeah, but I mean, come
It's not
on.
fair. I know what you mean.
Yeah,
Good for Alec Pierce. Good for his agent. Good for
yeah.
them.
Appreciation, yes.
Daniel Jones and Alec Pierce connection. It has to be something. So what I will say is I think Alec Pierce is going to be a relevant piece in fantasy because Pittman's gone,
Pittman's gone.
and there's no way they don't look at this team and say, "Hey, you've got to make him your X. You've got to make him heavily involved. You don't have a choice anymore. He's
Yeah, literally,
X
no, yeah.
percentage of our offense. That's what we have to do."
Yeah, he's making like 60% of what Daniel Jones is making, which is crazy high for a receiver already. Yeah.
There's got to be something up, man. There's got to be.
This makes me really like Tyler Warren next year, though, because if Daniel Jones is
Mhm.
panicking and he like can't find Alec Pierce downfield, his next best option with Pittman gone is Warren.
Well, Downs is still there too.
True, but
And I mean, I guess we saw Downs last year didn't really do as much as we'd hoped he would.
I almost like Downs overall as a player more than Pierce based on what we've seen. Yeah.
Pierce is a good deep threat, but like, come on, like good deep threat versus great deep threat is there's a chasm here, and he doesn't fall on the great side. I can pretty confidently say that at this point. Pierce, come out, prove me wrong. I love that because we need more wide receivers who are popping off.
And I will say that if he does come out and prove to be a great deep threat, that is an incredible fantasy boon because that means that he is like the weeks that he wins you, he's going to win you weeks, like 40 points.
So there's upside to like here, but as far as like fantasy next year, he's a gamble.
Yeah.
He's a gamble on a lot of different things because it's him and Daniel Jones coming off the Achilles tear. You don't get one without the other. Which we'll talk about Pittman. So Pittman went to the Steelers. He got a 3-year extension. Pittman to the Steelers, like I said, it kind of feels like a setup for a new quarterback. And I think it's a good trade. I think Pittman. I don't know what's going on with DK Metcalf.
He's still under contract at least.
Yeah, and they could void it. They could void it the guarantees from what I remember, but like I think that if Aaron Rodgers is back, DK Metcalf is no longer the wide receiver one. I can say that pretty comfortably.
I could see Rodgers really liking Pittman. Just kind of on a vibe. I don't know. Not even like skill set. Just I could see him being like the next Lazard.
Right. So I think Pittman has an opportunity to come in here and be the Steelers wide receiver one. It's not guaranteed because DK Metcalf, for everything that happened last year, for some of those drops that were bad, it was just bad vibes the year for DK Metcalf. So Pittman comes in. He's got a clear head. He got paid by the Steelers also. Before I make any guesses on fantasy, I'm going to need to know who their quarterback is.
Yeah, me too.
Romeo Dubs. He goes to the Patriots. 4 years, $68 million. Diggs got cut. He had a lot of legal issues, and he just overall seems like his character issues are coming out more and more and more and more as you hear more about him. So Diggs is likely, I would assume he's going to just burn out of this league right now.
I mean, he had a really good year of the Patriots, and he's under contract or was for 2 more years. So the fact that they cut him suggests something pretty like bad.
Yeah, after going to the Super Bowl, like you have a team that's clearly working, and then you cut him. Dubs, great standing. I think this is a good signing. I really do. Like he might not provide that like wide receiver one upside, but like we've talked about it. The Patriots and the Packers are doing the same thing. They don't need that wide receiver one upside. They're like, let's just throw a bunch of players that are good, maybe not great, and then no one knows what we're doing. Dubs just went from the NFC version to the AFC version of the same wide receiver core.
Literally, yeah.
So
I don't know. I don't know what to make of his fantasy value. I think he automatically becomes, with Diggs gone, he automatically becomes the best wide receiver there. But he was arguably the best wide receiver on the Packers, and that didn't turn into a whole lot of fantasy excitement. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like his value on the Patriots is the same as it was on the Packers, but maybe a little bit more to get excited about.
I think I'd be more excited about Romeo Dubs if I knew that Hunter Henry wasn't back. Because
Yeah.
Hunter Henry feels like the only like solid, consistent piece of that team, and it's not always like a high upside, but it's consistency. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, you're just guessing.
Yeah. And with Dubs and in Green Bay, you were guessing a lot.
And we saw what that looked like. It looked like really good sometimes, and really bad other times.
Yeah.
Also, Tyler Kraft was a really important piece of when it was good and when it was bad. So same teams. I really want this whole experiment to start failing. I'm really happy the Patriots lost the Super Bowl because I need teams to realize you need a good wide receiver one. So that way I can get more fantasy wide receiver ones.
Yeah.
Like we don't need more committees going on here. And wide receiver by committee is it's the most hurtful one because it is such a crapshoot.
Yeah. And there's always more receivers on the field than running backs. So at least running back by committee, there's always that higher likelihood of a touchdown in fantasy. Receivers, no. There's no consistency.
So we need this to fail for fantasy to continue to like operate the way it does. Wandale Robinson goes to the Titans. 4 years, $70 million. That's a pretty good deal for Wandale. DeBoll, of course, he went over to the Titans, so there's the clear reason why he went over there. And Wandale had an excellent year last year, just an awesome year, especially in PPR. PPR, he was a solid wide receiver too, coming in at about wide receiver 14, depending on your settings. And the Titans need help, so they have Alec Aomanar, Chimere DK, I guess Ridley. I don't know.
I guess.
Yeah, like question mark there. And then they've got Cam Ward, and Cam Ward needs to succeed. Everyone needs Cam Ward to succeed. So I like the fit the fit in theory. Wandale doesn't scream wide receiver one to me, but he does scream as someone who could take over that wide receiver room just by the skill, the talent in that wide receiver room. Like there's no one's been proven in that wide receiver room yet. So he can come in and be like, well, I've done it before, and then immediately get the lion's share of targets.
He could. And it reminds me a lot of the Romeo Doubs signing, where it's like the Patriots have a better wide receiver room and a better quarterback. But like, again, this is just the Titans seem to have a bunch of wide receiver 2, 3s on their roster. And I think Wandale is the most experienced. We saw a lot from Chimere DK last year that was exciting, but a lot of that was in the return game. So I don't think they're going to use him as on the field wide receiver consistently at all, really. And just because he's so good as a returner, kind of like, like the Rashid Shaheed effect. So yeah, it really depends on where he goes. But I also could see Wandale kind of getting buried in fantasy drafts and him going like, round 11 or 12 and that being, a piece of value there perhaps. But a lot depends on Cam Ward's development.
And then other than that, you got George Pickens staying with the Cowboys on a franchise tag. Who knows exactly what'll go on with that, because franchise tags are not necessarily the most loved things by players. So there's a chance that there's a extension or a trade that happens at some point. But Pickens, he was great last year. There's no reason to believe he won't be great again this year.
Wait, I'm gonna look at this. Here's the thing. Okay, George Pickens will be making $2 million a year or less than Alec Pierce. That's enough for Pickens to be like, all right, Jerry, we're not playing around here.
So when the Cowboys franchise tag Pickens, does it include Alec Pierce's salary in the however the average of the top 5 or whatever players in their position, or does it not? And so then when he gets paid, all of a sudden the franchise tag, this is a question that's probably not relevant to us in any way, but it's something I wonder about, because like if they did and the Cowboys giving them that franchise tag before all this started, it was such a brilliant move, and I don't want to give Jerry that.
It was early. They did it in like February. I want to say like mid-February. So that was one of the first offseason moves that I can recall, was Pickens getting that tag. So,
yeah. Rashid Shaheed stays with the Seahawks. Hard time imagining he has super relevance in fantasy. He'll be on a team. Yeah. He should be on a team, but he'll be one of those pieces that I think can help propel, but isn't the person himself that takes the team over the top. And then keep an eye on what Jawan Jennings does because there are plenty of teams that could use a wide receiver one.
Where do you like him? Like, where do you think his best fit is?
I would have liked the Titans before Wandale.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would have worked. And I'm just like thinking of teams that are bereft for talent, right? Like the Raiders would work, but I don't think they have enough money now for him. Gosh, it just depends on how much he's asking for, which is clearly a lot because I like him as a wide receiver too in certain places. Like I think he would be good on the Jets, and the Jets suck, but like they need a wide receiver too. That is someone like him who's reliable.
Yeah.
The Chiefs.
For fantasy, I would almost I think that's a good fit for fantasy because I mean, who knows what's going on after Rashee Rice? Really, that's enough said. I like him on the Chiefs. I mean, like the Dolphins or the Jets make sense because they have that need. But yeah, probably Chiefs for fantasy.
I can see the Saints too might be a good place for him.
Yeah, because they have Olave. That's all I'm thinking about right now. It's Olave. I can't recall anyone else.
Yeah, Olave, and then after that, I think it's just the wide receiver market for them drops off because I think they were using MVS at some point last year. And then they got Juwan Johnson. Taysom Hill still exists, I think. But speaking of Juwan Johnson and Taysom Hill, let's move on to tight ends. Let's just talk about tight ends. So Chiga Okonkwo, the former Titans tight end who looked like he was primed for something big. He goes to the Commanders. 3 years, potentially up to $30 million, just a little bit less. Ertz is hurt and out for the season, almost certainly. And the Commanders haven't signed any free agents. Debo's still hanging in the balance as well. And the Commanders like using their tight ends, as we saw with Ertz. One, that stinks for Ben Sennett because that almost certainly gets rid of his opportunity here. Chig, he has the talent and he has now the opportunity. So if you think that like when he was on the Titans, you were depressed that he wasn't blowing up, it could have been because of the team. Because he had flash weeks, but it was with Will Levis and Cam Ward in this terrible rookie season. Now he's got Jaden Daniels, who, if he can stay healthy, hits his tight ends, and Chig is excellent talent. I really like this fit. I think that there's going to be like potential sneaky value here as well, because I don't think a lot of people are going to go after Chig. Not after he's burned them like all years in fantasy because of zero ability to be consistent in his points.
Yeah, like when's his breakout going to come?
Yeah. So with tight ends are late breakout people. They're not like the running backs or the wide receivers where if we don't see it by year 2 or 3, then we just assume they're done. Tight ends can pop out of nowhere.
I could see this being best case, something like when John Smith went to the Dolphins a couple years ago. Maybe not, maybe even better than that. But like even that is a solid floor would be good because I mean Jonnu was like 5 years older than Chig is now, and he's just the first tight end that comes to mind that was older and came to a new team and like really exploded. I'm sure there's other even better examples, but like he definitely the opportunity and the quarterback upgrade is significant with Chig.
It is. It's hard with Washington just because last year was such a throwaway year. It feels like, and I have to imagine Debo's back, but I also don't think that hurts Chig too much if Debo's back. I think it might actually help him. Again, someone to pay attention to later in drafts. This is probably a tight end that'll go either like round 13, 14, 15 or undrafted altogether. And he could provide potential value. Ertz was a person that you could plug in almost any week that he was playing and get something out of. So the fact that Chig is a more athletic tight end at this point in his career could pay wonders.
Yeah, I like it.
The Giants. This one, he reunites with Harbaugh. Daniel Bellinger is gone. Wandale's gone. I don't love it though because Johnson was still there, right?
Yeah, Theo Johnson's there. Yeah, and again, like we've seen Likely have, like this opportunity in Baltimore where it's like, well, we don't have many good wide receivers and like their opportunities there, and he just didn't do much. And of course, Andrews was there. Andrews is much better tight end than Theo Johnson. But it's like, yeah, I mean, we haven't seen anything from Likely in fantasy at all.
But
Was it last year or 2 years ago where like he was like the hot pickup after week 1 in that Chiefs game?
2 years ago.
Yeah. Yep.
And then he just completely disappeared. Yeah, I had someone in my league below like 80% of their budget on that, and boy, was that the wrong move.
Yep.
So, yeah, 3 years, 40 million. That's a pretty good amount. So he's getting paid pretty well. I don't know what I think the best case scenario for Isaiah Likely is here. It's not something I'm excited about.
No, yeah.
Like, I don't expect him to be a top 3 tight end, and I think after that, it just doesn't really matter that much.
I don't see I mean, there's a path, I guess, with opportunity, but even like tight end 1 is pushing it for me.
This is saying if Malik Neighbors is healthy at the start of next year, then you might as well sell the boat to get Malik Neighbors.
Yeah. I could see the Giants drafting a wide receiver in the top 10 of the draft. Certainly possible. And that just I think Likely, regardless, that he's just kind of there.
Yeah. It's just interesting, and I mean, it's not like Jackson Dart he's not Lamar. He's a different profile than Lamar, but Jackson Dart himself, I don't know. I want to be excited. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to talk myself into being excited, and I'm just not getting there. So
trust your gut.
Yeah. Kelsey Pitts. Okay. Travis Kelsey, Cal Pitts, K. Dotton. They're all just staying with their teams. You already know what you're getting. Kyle Pitts is the one, not a question mark, but like a question mark and an exclamation point, because we saw him have the highest score by the tight end in many years last year.
Yeah, of all time.
And it was just like a splash. It wasn't a full season of that. It was just a splash. So we saw finally Kyle Pitts being utilized in the way that you would need him to be utilized to blow up. You have Tua and Penix. Yeah, Tua, who we've seen use Jonnu Smith and for a brief moment Waller in ways that were productive for tight ends. Different scheme completely. It'll be different here. What do you do with Kyle Pitts? And this is a question every single year. Like, do you just draft him in round 7 if you believe in him, and if you don't, then don't touch him?
I think if you get to round 7 and he's there and there's no one else you want to draft, yeah, maybe. And then take like, a Okonkwo in like later rounds, sure. But it's like Kyle Pitts, like I think Penix probably will start at some point next year. I don't think Tua is going to just have a resurgence and like go the whole year, but as soon as things started to like maybe look consistent for Pitts because they brought him back, it's like now there's just a whole lot of questions in Atlanta again. And Kelsey, like, I don't know. I mean, he wasn't terrible last year. He's not the tight end he once was, but I'm not gonna just say like fade Travis Kelsey into oblivion. Like, you could do worse, I think.
If Travis Kelsey gets faded into oblivion, there's probably value there. Like, imagine how Gronk was when he came back to the Buccaneers and he was going in around 11, 12 and then had a very respectable year. If he's a mid-round guy, then I think you're just going to get it'll be like this lukewarm pick that does pay off, but not in any exciting way. Could provide some stability to your team, but not a lot of upside.
Yeah.
It effectively quashes Noah Gray's ability to take over, though.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so Philly may be working out a deal with Dallas Goedert. If Goddard's there, unfortunately, he's just awesome.
Yeah.
Not like top 3 awesome, but he's pretty PPR relevant every single year that he's actually playing for Philly, and I think that'll just continue.
There's no reason to think he's really hit a cliff. I mean, he's going to finish his tight end 8, and we're just going to accept it.
Yeah, this is the same sort of timing when they got rid of Zach Ertz, though. So if they do choose to go with Dallas Goedert, it'll be interesting. because
Hmm.
with Ertz, they were like, yeah, no, we're not going to do it. But with Goddard, I guess they don't have another tight end in the wing waiting to take over.
No. Yeah.
And then I'll let you talk about this last point you got here, Willie.
Oh yeah, so I put in here. This is my early prediction. I've done a few mock drafts just for fun. I think just again, you can't always go off like the past couple years as historical precedent, but we saw like Laporta and then Bowers and then Colson Loveland, Tyler Warren, these high drafted tight ends just in back to back years like pop off in fantasy. And like there's only like really one exciting tight end to talk about in the draft. And I've already talked about him a bit, but that's Kenyon Sadiq. So I think Kenyon Sadiq is someone to target no matter where he goes. My early gut prediction is I think the Dolphins take him at pick 11, just because it seems like the kind of the round where he might go. And the Dolphins, they don't have Jonnu Smith. Who knows if Waller is going to be there? They don't have any reliable receiver options outside of Waddle, so they need another like speedy guy. Even though Mike McDaniel's not there, they still want speedy guys. So I think if Sadiq ends up getting drafted by the Dolphins, which I think is plausible, he's someone to really like. I could just see Willis targeting him a lot. So if you're not excited about any of the tight ends in fantasy next year, look at Sadiq. He might provide some boomer bust excitement.
Yeah, yep. I could definitely see that. There are a lot worse fits that he could go to. So the Dolphins, big question mark. We'll get on. So that's our first day of free agency podcast. Do join us later because we'll have more in-depth breakdowns on each team, kind of talk about the positions and everything later on once everything's more finalized. Right now, we're just been watching the news like y'all, and we like to talk about it. So thanks for joining us. Willie, do you have anything else you want to say before we go?
No, I mean, I'm excited for the draft. We'll talk to you guys next around just before the start of a draft and get into some hype about some rookies and have some more clarity around free agency then. But I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, things will really kick in around June, but prior to that, the draft. Of course, we're going to talk about the draft. Don't get you couldn't pay us to not talk about it. I mean, maybe you could, but probably not. Probably not. So, with that said, hey, I hope everyone enjoys this free agency period. If you are a Raiders fan, just remember it was all winning. Drafting stars in the 4th round is how you win and how all scenarios open up to be good. And if you're a Ravens fan, you already know what I'm going to say to you, so I don't have to say it out loud. Doink out.
Doink out.